competitive application that we can. Part of our process is to look at what the state's ranking criteria is for projects. There are general categories and then components of how those categories are distributed in their review process. And the state's very transparent in how they consider applications. The first one is the level of failure. Is the infrastructure failing and having an impact on the residents and neighboring communities? Whether the proposed solution actually that we're going to be going for meets the needs of the infrastructure failure. How long will it be in place? What will its useful life be? And is it going to be addressing some of the low and moderate income populations that are part of the community? If you recall, the CDBG program targets low and moderate income individuals. We want to make sure we get as much of an impact to those individuals as we can. And that was part of our process of evaluating. And then overall, the state compartmentalizes those components into the implementation and capacity of the administration to oversee and implement the project, how well the program is designed, so it's clear-cut and properly positioned to be successfully implemented, and then ultimately what the condition of the infrastructure is and how we sell the story on the need for this type of project. So what have we done so far? Based upon the last hearing, Hicks Partners put in open solicitation out to all the communities throughout the county, townships, villages, cities, and asked them if they can submit potential projects for this critical infrastructure grant program. We've gotten 5 respondents. Hicks put together our own pre-application based upon some of the state's criteria just to allow them to solicit feedback and kind of put their thoughts on paper as to what a project would look like. These 5 applications are shown before you. Sugar Grove, which is here today, to replace a portion of their sanitary sewer system. Thurston, which was to construct, apologize for the typo there, water line redundancy system. Pleasantville was to replace stormwater and do some sidewalk work. Carroll was to replace, again, some sanitary sewer system components. And Millersport was to replace their equalizer basin. So all these communities submitted pre-applications to Hicks, and our team put together our informal criteria ranking system that we provided to the county for you to consider based upon these following criteria. So when we took the applications in, we made sure to work with all the applicants so we had all the information to address these bullet points here. We wanted to make sure the projects were eligible. We wanted to make sure that the engineers were able to accurately articulate the condition of that infrastructure. If you recall, the state wanted to be in failing condition. We wanted to make sure that there was a clear analysis of that condition, aka pre-engineering work is already in place. For these projects to succeed, it has to be done within 2 years. So all the heavy lifting needs to be done up front in order for them to properly be competitive for the grant. We want to know what the capacity was for budget, the local match component that the cities can bring to the table. And any pre-engineering work has been done, which speaks directly to its project readiness. Excuse me. Readiness, again, means the ability to move as quickly as possible. Money needs to get out the door as fast as possible in order to meet the state's deadline. The level of failure, the impact, both direct and indirect, of the low and moderate income individuals, and finally, what the useful life is for the infrastructure. So we put together this scoring sheet, and the scores ranged from 21 to 27. So there were some outliers both on the low end, and it was very competitive on the top end. But after our further review, Sugar Grove scored the highest. So from that perspective, we were glad that there was a clear, not a winner, but a clear scoring sheet that said this was the most competitive out of our criteria, which is based upon the state's application review. So with that, we wanted to bring in the folks from Sugar Grove. The mayor is here, as well as the engineering professional, Bobby Fuller, in order to kind of summarize what their project is. And I'll allow them to come up or speak from where you're at there, if you like, to kind of go over what that looks like. And then I'll discuss after they present what the next steps are in the process.
Can I ask a question, please?
Please, yes, at any time, yes.
Pleased to have Sugar Grove with us today to promote their project, which scored the highest. But I just want to touch on the other projects. Those political entities were also aware of this hearing, correct? And is their invitation somehow different than Sugar Grove's invitation to this meeting?
No, they were not. We informed them that their application was well received, and there's a public hearing going to be held today at this time to discuss the winner of the application.
Well, sure about winner.
Not, I apologize for the verbiage, but the individual that was chosen for the applicant.
Understood. Do we have, and I'm sorry if I'm not recognizing, do we have representatives here also of the other projects, the ones that didn't score as high as Sugar Grove?
I don't believe so.
That's fine. I'm just wanting to understand.
They did receive notification through all the different emails that were sent out that there was a public hearing today to discuss everything. And I do want to point out too that when we were discussing these projects, that one project, Carroll, was not eligible for this grant. We had conversations with the state, and it's better suited for what's known as the RPIG grant. So we have directed them in that direction. And then Pleasantville was the next highest scoring project. And they have a $720,000 neighborhood revitalization grant with the county for program year 2022. So we were able to tell communities, Sugar Grove scored the highest, and here's your path, and here's what, you have your path going this way. Now Thurston and Millersport, they didn't necessarily have a specific path to go down, but we made them aware of, future allocation years that can be provided for this.
And I appreciate that. And I could have guessed that there was some communication, some soft landing conversations, and some good politics to supplement the good policy, which is choosing the best, right? But I just want to make sure, right? Because, it's a little bit of politics and everything.
We totally understand. So we made sure those conversations happened.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Please.
No, not at all. And I think we took that to heart, and we're very intentional and deliberate in how we communicated and our commitment in sharing that this is, their process was not in vain. So they have the formations of a project. As they refine that project and go forward, we're going to be there to help them for other opportunities that come down the pipe. So
Just one more question on process.
yes.
So we go through this process, we score them. Apparently Sugar Grove got a 27. I'm guessing someone else got a 26. Is it up to the commissioners to decide which project goes forward in the application, or do we not have a role in it?
It is ultimately your sole responsibility as commissioners to determine which project that you choose to go forward. Our role was to vet and to prioritize and provide to you our independent scoring sheet for you to consider which project is most competitive.
I explain this too because I think it's important. There was CDBG training that took place in April, and Anthony and I were both on that training. And Anthony asked one way, and then he got an answer that neither one of us really liked. So I tried to ask it in a different way. We both were trying to get to the point where we could bring multiple projects to the commissioners and have the commissioners choose which ones. But they ultimately, both times we asked in different ways, so we were only allowed to advertise one project, and then that's the one we apply for. So we initially had to make that decision to go forward. Recommendation.
So that flies in the face of it's our decision. Right? Because if you're only allowed to bring us one final application, then you've made the choice, not us, right?
It's
Not
all,
that
I know, it's
not that I
ultimately the commissioner's decision, but we're supposed to do a scoring criteria and provide you with what makes the most sense for the program is what we are told by the state.
Understood, and I get the delicate dance we're doing here on the head of a pin. I want Sugar Grove to understand that my questions, Commissioner Fix's questions, they're not any way, shape, or form meant to be disrespectful to your proposal. That's not what's going on here. All that's going on here is, this isn't something we deal with maybe, every other year or so, right? So not something that we're in the trenches on every day dealing with. And so we just want to make sure we understand our role And we always ask these questions every time it comes up as if it's the first day we've been a commissioner, right? Because we need to refresh on things that we're not dealing with day in, day out to make sure that we are following proper protocols and process. That's all that's going on here. Nothing like, oh geez, I sure wanted to pull Miller's Ford up in front of, Sugar Grove today. That's not what's going on here. You were about to introduce these folks?
Yes. This is your meeting. We're just going with the flow. So I sincerely appreciate your feedback and direction. So with that, Mayor and Bobby, if you wanted to sit there and go, we know we have a slide outlining your project here that provides some more specifics about what the issues are, what their concerns are, and the overview of the
I like
project.
the name already.
Yeah. Practical way. So, Mayor and Bobby, the floor is yours. However you want to.
I'm Tyson Nye, I'm Mayor of Sugar Grove, and then Jeff is here too, he's council president.
And I'm Bobby Fuller, I'm with DLZ. I've been working with the village to get this project off the ground, and we have completed design of it and submitted it to the EPA so that we do have a permit to install and we're ready to roll once we have financing or funding to take care of this. So just a general summary, the project consists of replacement in an alleyway of Rocket Way from approximately West 1st Street to a little bit north of West 5th behind the water plant. So it's a central trunk line that serves most of the city, including that water plant. The village has had issues in the past with basement backups because the line is collapsing and has, as you can see in the picture in the bottom right, pretty significant root ball growth. So we get a significant basement backup, it might prohibit the village from being able to run their water plant, which could be a pretty significant issue for them if they don't have enough water to provide needs of the residents. So we definitely feel it's critical infrastructure to get this replaced. It also, after we've done surveying, shows that it's not the proper slope that the EPA desires to help make sure that line stays clean and operating correctly. So I guess on to the concerns. Obviously, basement backups are a serious health concern, as well as just not having water to the residents. Start doing that, you're going to see EPA mandates and fines potentially for creating unsafe sanitary conditions. So the project overview is about 1,364 feet of 10-inch sewer we plan to install, which directly affects and replaces about 30 services along the area as well. This should also improve conditions, reduce what's called inflow and infiltration, which is generally groundwater or stormwater getting into the system, which is a costly expense to treat water that really didn't need treated at all in your wastewater plant, and it also can overwhelm the plant and create issues there as well. So our estimate was about $750,000 to construct, which things are not cheap. They don't seem to be getting any cheaper. So
How do you feel about that number now?
we're aware of inflation with that estimate and tried to account for it. I'm not sure where numbers will come in. It's pretty hard to.
In the 751, is there a percentage of contingency that's included in that?
That would be the standard 10% contingency involved.
Tyson, how much does the village have to?
I was just talking to our fiscal officer, and if we were able to get up to 500,000, she said that we would pay the rest without getting one take off.
Thank you.
Any feedback from your community on this? I mean, have you had any kind of meetings down there where you're discussing this potential project and you're hearing from Tom, Dick, or Harry that they like it or that they don't, kind of thing?
We haven't had any meetings with any residents about it. It's just been all through DLZ.
Council meetings.
Yeah, well, the council meetings, yes. I mean, they've been in the council meetings, but no one has come to the council meeting when we've discussed it other than council.
If I recall correctly, having been down to a couple of your meetings, this has been talked about for quite a long time, hasn't it?
Yes.
2 years. You've been in the planning stage. Yes. At the same time,
when we had to update our water treatment, for our, water treatment plant. This was right along there. It was felt by the EPA that, we should do the water first and take care of the sewer based upon what we could tell them at that time on conditions. So, you know, we've been planning for this for at least a couple of years.
The reason I asked about that, it's a little bit of odd duck, but while we've been in this meeting, I ignored a call from an old friend of mine, Mark Powers. He and I go way back, and I just wondered if that was like completely, I mean, he calls me about other things and social and other things too, so, but it just, I was like, are you interested in this in some way, or, you know, I didn't know, but I just was curious.
Not that I would be aware of. He has a few houses in Sherman Grove that he rents, but I'm not sure they're not hooked into this part of the sewer.
Like I say, totally off the beaten path, but I saw that and like, what, you know. Anyway, please continue.
Just, Mark is a very good person to have around Sugar Grove. We need something, we need equipment for something that we don't have equipment for. He's right there on the ball and takes care of us. He's a good guy.
Well, I'm retired now, but when I was a lawyer, he was my first client. On a load ticket, you know, where your trucks are too heavy kind of ticket. He used to fight those, but
Did you get him out of it?
first one I did. There were a few after that, but.
All right, so you guys are good? You feel good about, all right.
I think as the council member mentioned, the fact that they're working on it for so long helped the project to get to a place of being designed and prepared for it to apply, which is why they scored as high as they did in the application process. So are there any other questions on the project?
I have another question on process.
Sure, yes.
At the conclusion of this hearing, I gather we don't actually vote, that there would be a resolution.
At your next meeting, we'll have a resolution on your regular agenda.
But in terms of our conduct at this meeting, we don't vote, but should probably give some indication of, you know, favorability that would result in the resolution coming forward.
Correct.
Okay, all right, please.
Perfect. You read the slide, the next slide I had in front of me. So the process would be the county would need to authorize a resolution supporting Sugar Grove to apply to the state under this particular program. Then it would be on Hicks Partners and the community to put together the application, and then from there the state would ultimately make their decision. The final deadline is June 14th, but they have a pre-application process. And as Holly mentioned earlier, we have been in contact with the state to make sure that this project meets all their criteria to be eligible. And we had some explicit emails to make sure, and they signed off and saying that it is eligible, which was very helpful for us to ensure and make the recommendation for you to consider it today.
So I'll just say my 1/3 of the equation. I look favorably on the resolution coming forward. That leaves me just a little bit of daylight between I'm going to vote yes or I'm going to vote no on the resolution itself. We're just hearing about this. We're just getting briefed. You know, in theory, some situation or another could arise in the coming days that would influence our thoughts on this or whatever. But y'all are doing a good job. We hire people to do a job. We trust them to do the job. So I have a lot of confidence in how this is all going to go. But I just want you to know that me saying I look favorably on the resolution coming forward is just a hair short of I'll be voting yes on that resolution. That's where I'm at.
I look favorably upon it as well without those reservations.
That's the point.
He needs to.
Yeah.
We thank you guys for hearing us out.
So collectively then I can say the commission looks favorably on the resolution coming forward, and then it wouldn't be official from our vantage point until that resolution were actually passed.
We'll present it to them next week.
Is there anything additionally required in the context of this hearing that we haven't already covered?
We've checked all the boxes that state requires for us in the pre-application process, so we are all set.
So if we were to conclude this meeting, there would be no problem with that. One last thing. Still got a couple minutes here. Is there anybody in attendance here who had something on their mind or some issue they wanted to present that doesn't feel like they got an opportunity to do that? Apparently there is. There never is. There is. Connie.
I'm just thinking with Hicks Partners also doing the other work for the county for grants that you guys probably had an opportunity to share with these other entities. Other opportunities, you know, like Holly was talking about, just making sure they're engaged in the other process that you guys are working with us on. So another soft landing approach.
Absolutely. Anthony talked to us multiple times, kind of before, after. We answered their questions even as they were putting the pre-application so we could kind of score the materials. So there was a lot of back and forth. And yeah, I mean, we're trying to point them in the right direction if this funding isn't the right one for them.
One thing you may already be aware of, but in a manner of speaking, the commission is kind of closing the gate a little bit right now on ARP issues. And that's kind of been a go-to in the last couple of years. If somebody asked for something and we couldn't do it this way, with them, well, maybe we can go ARP or whatever. Kind of tightening that down a little bit right now because we have some projects where we're a little concerned about whether they're going to be right where they need to be in terms of their dollars and their timelines, things like that. So there's some analysis going on right now within our ARP front where we're just trying to make sure we can cover everything we said we would right now. I mean, we have the funds, but you know, somebody might ask us for $1 million and then they might come back to us a month from now and say, well, it's 1.1. We didn't think this was going to happen. And we just want to have a little bit of flexibility in our bottom line, so to speak, to handle those types of potential adjustments. And I'm just mentioning that in the spirit that ARP probably should not be part of soft landing discussions right now.
The other work that they're doing with us on the grant writing. But I was
Understood.
I mean, they also, like in working with Bremen, seems like it was a better fit for a neighborhood revitalization grant. So that was seeing
Early next year.
So I just wanted to take a minute and thank Tyson and Jeff for their leadership down in Sugar Grove. That village council and being a village mayor is a pretty tough gig some days. So really appreciate what you guys are doing down there.
Thank you all very much. Is there any reason I shouldn't call this hearing to a close?
Please drag it on as much as you can.
If anybody has to be in Cleveland, it's really anxious to get back out here.
No, there is no motion to adjourn. Y'all have a.
This public hearing is closed.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you all very much. Good job, guys. And girls.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Mr. President.